What's up guys, and welcome back to another no bullshit cluster news video. This one picks up following the aftermath of last week's video where GDSFS launched an early morning raid on VVV, the server's alpha. Last week, GDSFS launched an early morning raid on VVV's lava cave. This was a failed offline attack and VVV was quick to repel the attackers. But the action angered VVV leadership and the call was made that this could not go unpunished. And so, after a few days of war preparation and some scouting by VVV forces, they had discovered that GDSFS was using Ragnarok to house 3 bases. The castle, which housed materials and a small farming outpost, Alpha Plat, which seemed to be in construction as a breeding base, and Blue Op Cave, which acted as their primary home. This was completely unorthodox because offline raid protection only applied to one base at a time on each map, which they had active on the castle. This meant the other 2 bases were completely vulnerable and VVV was not about to let this opportunity slide. They sieged both bases at the same time and after limited resistance they were able to destroy both bases, leaving GDSFS crippled. But VVV wasn't the only tribe that GDSFS had pissed off. In fact, a few days earlier their forces had wiped a base owned by Misguided. This was their only home and losing it caused the tribe to completely dissolve. One of these members ended up joining 73X. There, he petitioned their leadership telling them of the violence he had faced under GDFS's reign of terror on Ragnarok, and the council decided that they could not allow this to continue any longer. As soon as the weekend hit, they gathered their forces and pushed into the last surviving stronghold that GDSFS had, their castle. Here, they pushed with Stegos, slowly draining the exterior turrets and allowing a push to the front entrance. Once they arrived, they began systematically chipping down the defenders' forces with turtle plays that dwindled their remaining turrets down to nothing. And it didn't take long before their defenses collapsed altogether. And as the night fell in the no bullshit cluster, the air on Ragnarok was calm and the map was at peace without the violent presence of GDSFS. In our last cluster news video, Iskari was on the hunt for the tribe of Norse traders. They had wiped their underworld underwater cave in a brutal and systematic hunt to murder a player that had talked shit to them. They had succeeded in wiping all of their other bases, but the final base stood atop a mountain in Astraeus. The Iskari forces launched a surprise attack, catching the defenders off guard, and with limited defenses, they quickly gained access, resulting in a bloody massacre of over 100 dinos. After the violence subsided, Norse Traders was officially without a home. The tribe got together and decided that the problematic player who had caused this attack would be ousted as he had brought war to the tribe's doorstep one too many times. The remnants of the Norse Traders fled and remain in the shadows till this day. The next war that took place was between Extended Car Warranty and Old Valyria. This was a battle that initially resulted in a stalemate. Neither side could push the other, and many dinos lost their lives attempting to push the lines of battle. Soon, the night fell, and many of ECW's forces fell asleep. However, Old Valyria was on a completely opposite sleeping schedule, and their forces surged, nearly wiping the ECW fob before a member hopped on and barely saved it, holding this fob until ECW reinforcements showed up to push Old Valyria back. It would be a long, exhausting battle before ECW finally dropped both of Old Valyria's outside towers. But the battle had taken a toll on both sides, and ECW would ultimately pull out, not having the motivation to continue pushing the cave, which Old Valyria had riddled with defenses. On the other side of the cluster, while the ECW war was taking place, an alpha base had spawned, garnering attention as they contained valuable loot including gold loot boxes inside. They also gave alpha score to whatever tribe could destroy the vault on the inside. The first tribe on the scene was 73X. They set up a forage fob and immediately began soaking. Initially, they enjoyed free reign to soak as they pleased, but it wasn't long before another tribe by the name of Costco arrived and began setting up a counter fob on the back end of the alpha base. The result would be hours of grease feeding by Costco, making every attack against the Alpha base a painful, bloody push due to the constant Umbra bombing. However, their attempts would only slow 73X down, and 3 hours later they finally breached the inside of the base to claim the spoils. But Costco was ready for this, and they sent in fucking Leroy Jenkins to put one final sword into 73X's asshole. Yeah, boy.
It was a misinput, calm down! You calm the fuck down!
Ultimately, 73X would wipe the base and take the spoils for themselves, earning a whopping 20 alpha score. They would transport tons of loot back to their bases in Snow North and Pearl Cave. But Costco still had a bad taste in their mouth after losing the spoils to Mortal and his gang. They decided to make a push to wipe 73X, and they fought on both caves, pushing Dreadnought after Dreadnought into their towers. But after a painful 27 hours of bloody combat, 73X only lost one outside tower, and their Snow North remained alive and well. On Ragnarok, the peaceful period since the wipe of GD SFS had come to an abrupt halt as the Ascari were on the warpath once again, this time choosing to party fob Palantir. They would push the front aggressively, dropping turrets and aggressively launching soakers into the death wall. They would deal a significant amount of damage, but ultimately, Palantir was able to hold off the opposing forces until their drive exhausted and they packed up their party fob. It was an honorable fight amongst both sides, with GGs going all around and multiple smoke break truces occurring mid-fight. As the weekend came to a close, ECW had replenished its war supplies and began launching attacks again. They would strike Omega's Highlands Lighthouse Cave, fighting throughout the night before ultimately packing up in the morning after dealing damage to the exterior. They would then launch a very quick attack on Silver's Blood Sewer Cave. They would be pushed back within a few hours. Well, that concludes this week's news video, but before I go, I'd like to shout out the tribes that were able to fight it out and destroy raid event bases this week. For the Alpha category, We Happy Few wiped the base. For Beta bases, 73X and Rock Bottom both managed to clear a base. For the Gamma tier, Ascari and Palantir wiped the base. This weekend's leaderboard came to a close with 73X just barely earning the Alpha title. For bases wiped, VVV held the top with 4 bases wiped. For player kills, Costco was on top with just 1 kill needed to be the first tribe to reach 100. For dino kills, VVV held the top with a whopping 237 enemy dinos killed. We also had 7 new tribes join the cluster since the last video. Oh Shit, Blues Clues, Cranking Hogs, Freedom TV, Island Boys, Not Ordinary ARK, and Odin's Disciple. Lastly, I'd like to give a shout out to some of our No BS content creators. These guys are streaming a lot of these fights live, so if you'd like to watch the action as it's happening, be sure to check them out. Now, if you're new to the channel and you're not a part of the cluster, be sure to join our Discord at discord.gg/nobsark, and you can also check out our website at nobsark.com. Also guys, please hit that like and subscribe button. It takes a lot of time and effort to make these videos to show off the community's achievements and battles. I love doing it, but if you'd love to support, make sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks guys.